Happy New Year, everybody. This is the Enough to Keep Going podcast. We are back in 2018. It's been a while, but we are all here for Core Show. And as true to fashion, Osiris Prime is holding up some, this time it's not on his face, but it is just some pixel art Mario. There, I've acknowledged. Oh, and it lights up. Happy holidays, Happy New Year. It's like his own little Mario ball drop here. You know, we're 9 days late on the new year, but that's okay because as Enough to Keep Going, deadlines, time frames, calendars, yeah, these are immaterial to us. Really, we are here to keep going, to keep playing, to keep exploring and engaging with the industry, with the hobby that we enjoy, and 2018 will be no different. And it maybe we're gonna rise to new heights here in our new 2018 year. How about that, gentlemen? So the whole crew is back for our kickoff show. This is our first show of 2018. This is both our one last look back at 2017 and our crystal ball prognosticator time for 2018. And so yes, there's plenty of podcasts and shows out there that are going to give you some predictions, some trends, some things they don't want to see any more of, crazy wacky new predictions, some things that are already happening maybe at CES. But what we're going to do is we're going to play a little round robin here, and each of us are going to do some armchair CEOing. How about that? And we will cover each of the platforms. We're going to consider those as Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and the general platform of PC. So, and we're about personalities here. We're about friendship and camaraderie, and so this is a safe place for each of us to share some inner thoughts. And so we're going to close the show today with some 2018 resolutions. So we'll probably be gaming resolutions, but with Osiris Prime on, you never know what you're going to get. So let's go around the horn one time, gentlemen, and say introduce ourselves just as the new year launches. So we've got Osiris Prime. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back. I was itching to do a podcast.
It has been a while, right? It's nice to get back and talk with you, gentlemen. So, Aglasically Stamos, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know what podcast crew you're a part of, because I personally think that very often and frequently our schedule is wired tighter than any schedule that I have at work. So I actually feel like dates do matter to us, but it is what it is.
That's true. Well, I guess you are right. Our schedule of when we're going to podcast certainly matters, right? That our timeliness in our trendy topics may be a little more different, but you are right. We are dependable. For our viewing audience and for each other, we are dependable. That is very true. Coming at you every Tuesday and Thursday evening. So, and Swissguard, how are you, sir? Happy New Year.
I'm doing well. Happy New Year, everyone. Glad to be back. I would say that dependable is one way to describe it. Another way to describe it is we are stereotypically neurotic when it comes to all things geek, and we can't help ourselves but be fairly regular. And I have a feeling this theme is going to crop up again in our resolutions segment.
Oh, really? Am I going to have to tell Glassicles the difference between Skylanders and Amiibo again, just in order to
I was thinking more along the lines of I imagine we got some statistics-based scheduling for our...
See, I don't think of that as geeky. I think of that as just analytically, we are results-based. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
there we go. How about that? That's in my strengths-based leadership course over the new year. That's one of my resolutions. So anyhow, gentlemen, the final resolution of the kickoff the show here is wait a minute, Swiss. Your face is shiny. What happened over the new year?
I found my razor, man.
Oh, so somebody got something for Christmas.
Oh, that's what that was. I knew you looked different.
Wasn't even sure. So, gentlemen, this is a enough banter, and let's dive into our look back here on 2017. So we want to talk a little bit here in terms of our personal look back, right? We spent the last two shows before the end of our season wrapping up the industry and thinking about big games and experiences. And on Thursday's show, on our new show, we're going to spend a little bit of time there, also looking back at some news stories for the year. But right now, I just want to take a few minutes here in the beginning of the show, and there's a lot that happened for us as a network in 2017, for us as gamers, new systems, new experiences, backlogs, all kinds of stuff. So Swiss, as the newly shaven crew member, I want to have you. Why don't you start us off here? So when you think back on 2017, what went well? What memories do you hold on to? What do you look back and kind of wince about? What didn't go nearly as well as you had hoped for?
I would say that both positive and negative revolve around E2KG. Positive because it's been a lot of fun chatting games, every week with you guys, and I haven't really had this level of community around my hobby in a long, long time. So that's been really great, and it's also driven me to play more often. So I've had a lot of fun. PS4, the Switch has been awesome. My wife is playing it a lot, and you could almost say it's turning her into a gamer. I mean, it sounds corny to say as like a hobby, but the Switch is something like our entire family shares as a hobby, all the way down to the young kids playing Mario, and the latest zeitgeist around our house is Splatoon. So it's rotating, and we're talking turf war strategies at the dinner table. So it's been really great just having my hobby being shared among my family, and it's due to Nintendo, really. As far as things that gaming regrets, if you will, you guys have really set the bar high for how much you play and the variety that you play, and I feel like I kind of get locked in to a handful of games, and I'd like to maybe try to pursue a little bit more variety in my gameplay. I kind of regret not experimenting more and playing with even if I know I'm not going to turn that game into like a primary game, playing it for a few hours just to try it out. So
maybe there's a little bit of New Year's resolution in there as well to come back to at the end of the year. So Osiris Prime, you are not newly shaven. You have been fully decked out in your holiday winter garb here in the Midwest. You got to stay warm up Northland here. So, you may not be having a lot of hair on top, but I'm not even going to finish that. So, anyhow, there's no transition that catches back up from that one. So, anyhow, thinking about your look back here in 2017, what went well for you? I know one of the things that did go well, I would guess, would be that you finally nagged yourself a Switch. But when you think back on the season here, on the year, what sticks with you?
Yeah. As far as positive, definitely the Switch. I was hoping to get one right out of the gate. Unfortunately, I had to hold my plans. Some life issues came about. So eventually, though, around I don't know, May or June or so, I finally was able to pick one up. Maybe July. I can't really remember. It's one of those months. Finally got one. Got into it. I bought the game. I bought the system, and I still wasn't, totally sure about it, even after it had already been released. And there's games pretty much coming out for it at that point. I just wasn't sure about it, even with some of the positive stuff that was coming out. But I think it's one of those things until you get in your hands and you're playing it, that's when you kind of see, what they were doing with it, and what you can do with it. And as far as the portability, I was like, I'm not gonna use that. And that's like 90 to 95% of my gameplay is portable. So I barely even put it on the TV. Usually my son is the one that has it playing on the TV. So that was a big surprise for me, at least. And then kind of the couple things that, in a bad way that went bad. Excuse me. And then this kind of happens every year, I suppose. But game studios closing. We had well, I guess I was gonna say Bioware Montreal. They didn't really close. I guess they kind of got absorbed into was it Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah, they kind of got split up and disseminated.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they had Mass Effect Andromeda, and that wasn't, obviously it didn't have critical acclaim and even, user acclaim, consumer acclaim. But I just thought, I thought it was kind of a raw deal that, all right, so they had one bad game, it happens. I mean, it was still, I'm sure it probably sold fairly well. I'm assuming, I mean, at least decently. I mean, games have gone, worse than that, and still gone on, to do, bigger and better things after that, or studios, excuse me. And then we had Visceral, uh, another EA property or game studio, which didn't even have. They were working on what, an unnamed Star Wars game. I don't think we even got a name for it or anything like that. The big single story driven game that got the axe they had their head chopped off from EA. Supposedly that's not what the problem was. It wasn't because it was a single player story driven game, but obviously that was probably part of it. And obviously EA wanted to go somewhere different. They just totally shut down the studio, which I thought, I mean, they could have just taken taken that game away from them and let them do something else. They they did the Dead Space, excuse me. I thought they had another game, I can't remember right now, but or they could have just had them. I'm sure they have other ideas they couldn't had them work on, but I mean they totally closed those guys down. So I just thought it was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, Visceral's other game before was Hardline, Battlefield Hardline.
Hardline,
right?
yeah,
2015.
I knew they had worked on something else, and I think that was pretty well received as far as I could tell, more or less.
Sales are not as strong as a normal Battlefield one, but still.
Right. Yeah. And then the other kind of negative was just Xbox in general. I mean, once I got the Switch, I mean, when at the beginning of the year, obviously I didn't have a Switch yet, so I was still playing Black Ops 3. I couldn't get into Infinity War, or Infinite Warfare, excuse me. I was playing Battlefield 1 still, kind of older games. I didn't really have anything new that I was playing. Skyrim, I guess, but that was new, but it was obviously it's an older game, the remaster or special edition. And I didn't really have anything to play until the end of the year when PUBG finally came out, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And that was, I'm having tons of fun with that. So I'm jumping back into the Xbox system with that. But I mean, I don't really see a lot other than like Crackdown 3 coming up that I really want, to get my hands on. So hopefully, obviously, it's still early. So, E3 is coming up and maybe even GDC, they'll announce something, but hopefully they can turn it around this coming year.
All right. So, Glassicles, you've been jumping through a lot of hoops here in the past year with the E2KG network, not only with its launch, but with our blackout here and lockout on YouTube. And now we are finally back. So, as you look back on 2017, what sticks out to you? What are those highlights? What are those things where you kind of kick yourself for?
So, I apologize. I may have missed a cue while I was getting all the social media stuff out. So are we only doing what went badly in 2017 right now?
No, we're talking about what went well as well. So,
right. So,
yep.
I guess one thing that I was happy about for myself personally is I felt like I played like most of the most talked about premiere games of 2017. I feel like I engaged very quickly in March, which was admittedly maybe a 1 month lag because we had Nier Automata in February, and what was the other one in February of last year?
Neo was, yep.
Yeah.
And we had Resident Evil at the end of January too.
Right. So I jumped in on Resident Evil 7. I skipped Neo and Nier Automata, but then I jumped right back in Horizon Zero Dawn. And typically, historically for me, I'm usually the type who I don't like pop right back in after the holiday season. Usually I play those holiday season games all the way through March, and it's closer towards Memorial Day that I really start consuming that gaming year's content. So, and between all of us, we played a lot of big things. I pre-ordered a Switch, got a hold of that, jumped right in on Destiny 2 right away. So these are things that are not always true of my engagement with gaming as a hobby every single year. It actually happens fairly rare and in between. So I was pretty happy with that for the last year. So I apologize. We're apparently very popular
That was me.
Good.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's not all you. There's like you. It's all you always get us, but then there's like tons of other people jumping in.
Well, that's good.
So join the conversation. So there was that. I'm trying to, and the one bad of 2017 is the same thing that it always is. I also bought a lot of games that I didn't dive in and spend as much time in. In particular, I gotta even remember the name of this thing, but there were a couple turn-based strategy and RTSs that came out on the PC, kind of in that just post-March time frame. Stars and Shadow was one big one, and the Warhammer 40K turn-based strategy game that I didn't spend as much time with, mainly because of all the more action-oriented games that I played last year. And I guess I'll just throw one more in. I guess another thing that I would say went well at the tail end of 2017, and I'm not happy about it, but it needed to happen, is I divested myself of my Shield appliances. So the NVIDIA Shield Android TV and the NVIDIA Shield Portable. I like those systems. I'm proponents of those systems. I think they're good systems for people to own and play. It was just too much. And so at the end of the day, my gaming has become more efficient by having fewer platforms to have to focus on.
So is that a matter of just taking them out of rotation and not getting to them? Was it kind of duplication of what you were playing? Or, as somebody who sells games and systems plenty of times, is it just a matter of financials?
No, it's just a matter of cycle time, right? Like, I play a certain amount each week in general. And we're gonna talk about our paradigms, I guess, for next year. But my paradigm has historically predominantly been device based. And when I have 7 devices to get around between versus 9 devices, that just changes that metric, right? So.
All right. So those are anything else in terms of negativity, or is that?
No. I felt like I had a pretty decent year gaming last year, as opposed to the year before when I was really vexed about pieces of hardware that were sitting around the lab that I didn't get around to gaming on.
There you go. Yes, that is true. And last year was not the year you built your PC. It was 2 years ago now at this stage, right? It was 16.
Yeah.
Gaming rig.
So what I meant last year, I meant 2016 was when I was really stressed out about pieces of hardware. I built the primary gaming rig, I guess, at the tail end of that year. So really, the first full calendar year that the new gaming PCs were rigged was 2017, was last year.
Cool. All right. So, gentlemen, we are going to kick into our prognosticator section here, our armchair CEO, for the sake of time, right? This is E2KG, and as Glassicles said, we do like to keep a tight schedule, so we're going to keep moving through the evening. So the plan here is to think about what each gaming platform, and we'll include PC as a platform, needs to do in order to be more successful, in order to grow, to expand, to maybe it's to diversify, maybe it's thinking about their gaming portfolio or some hardware needs. But from an armchair CEO aspect, what does that platform need to do in order to be successful, whether critically successful or financially successful, coming into 2018? So we've got going to run down the list here, gentlemen, and then we'll start our armchair quarterbacking. So, Swiss, Scott, you were going to take Nintendo, as you were talking about with your family already doing some strategizing around the dinner table. So you're going to tackle Nintendo. Glassicles, you're going to tackle Sony. And deal with how they're doing, what they're doing with their hardware, software, where they're at. As you were talking about some big Sony games there from last year. Prime, as you said, you were always a solid Xbox gamer. You kind of fell off the wagon, and Nintendo scooped you up. but now you're back, and you've got some excitement, or at least maybe some hope in there in terms of what 2018 will bring for Microsoft. And so we're hoping to hear what you think they need to do. You already kind of hinted at some of that in your intro here, and I'm going to round things up with talking about PC. And for PC, I'm going to consider this Steam, BlizzardNet, BattleNet, thinking about, hardware platforms, and kind of a little broad swath there. So let's go ahead and I think we're going to try to do, for the sake of jumping around here, we're going to let each of you do a little bit of armchair quarterbacking, give us some predictions, give us some recommendations, boardroom pitches, and we're going to kind of question you a little bit. We're going to bounce some questions back at you, and kind of tease some of those things out before jumping on to the next platform. So Swiss, let's start off here. Nintendo had a banner year, all right? I mean, this is within the last week, we've got news stories that in Japan, the Switch has sold more than the Wii U over its entire life cycle. The Switch in America is the fastest selling console ever, even topping the immense hot property of the Wii. So Nintendo's had a banner year. What do they do for 2018?
Yeah, when we kind of started to break this down, I felt like I got the easy one. Because honestly, for Nintendo, I think the first goal is just keep the momentum going. Like you said, their Switches have been selling. People get it. I don't think they got. I mean, people didn't get the Wii U. They get the Switch, and it's working. So but beyond that, 2017 they released the Switch. The system is great, but it was also buoyed by the twin Nintendo titans of Zelda and Mario. So you had Splatoon 2 in there, which is another pretty rising Nintendo IP in the middle. But you have some strong tent poles driving Switch sales. So I would say, as far as the momentum, you want to avoid stagnating. And I know we have some core Nintendo IPs coming in 2018. You have Kirby Star Allies, which is confirmed for 2018. You have an unnamed Yoshi title, an unnamed Fire Emblem title. I think Bayonetta 3 is exclusive to Switch, if I'm not mistaken. But those, I would argue, probably aren't system mover IPs like a Mario or a Zelda. So, I'm hoping we see more information on Metroid 4. I'm hoping we get more information on the next Pokemon installment, which I heard the next mainline Pokemon title is going to be on the Switch. Those are Metroid to a little bit lesser extent, but Pokemon's a system seller. And then Smash Brothers is another huge IP that we don't really know what the plans are for yet on the Switch platform. We know they're going to have a Switch iteration. So as far as games wise, to keep the momentum going, I'd hoping we see more information on that. Online presence would be the second goal. They really don't have that set up just yet. I'd really like to see them develop their online account management. This week, one of the things we did, my mom and my sister and I, we pitched in and bought my brother and his family a Switch for Christmas. And they got my nephew, who's pretty much the exact same age as my son, Splatoon 2. And it was the greatest thing when those two 7-year-olds were playing together online, just watching them play. But, there's no real easy way for them to have voice chat together. We were resorted to, speakerphone. And the fact that Nintendo's been cycling through their online account management stuff, they reinvented it with this one. We need something solid. We need something. It doesn't have to surpass the PSN or Xbox Live, but it needs to be kind of at least in the same ballpark. So I'm curious to see if we get a really good launch of their full online service, and if it's tied to a major gaming release like a Smash Brothers 2 to really drive adoption of the service. Because right now, what do you got? You got Splatoon 2, Rocket League, ARMS. I don't know how many real powerful titles would be driving adoption of that. Last goal: define the role of the 3DS. The Switch, I think, has really invaded this space. As Osiris Prime said in his, looking back remarks, he was surprised at how much he played it in undocked mode, and I was as well. I had that like basically verbatim quote here in my notes. I was surprised at how much I play undocked than versus on the TV, and so it's taken over the 3DS space. Does a pure portable console make sense in a world with a Switch? And part of me thinks it doesn't, and they should start winding that down and trying to just drive as much content as they can towards the Switch. So,
Okay,
those would be
gentlemen,
my pitch.
who wants the first crack at these boardroom pitches here? Okay, so I'm going to take the
I
first
guess
crack.
I'm right.
No,
That's
so
I was 100% correct.
talk to me about games. So
Okay.
we've got you're hopeful about Metroid 4. You're hopeful about a Pokemon game. So the last time we saw anything about the Pokemon game, it was a developer, it was an executive at a desk saying, "Yes, we're going to make one."
True that.
The only thing we saw on Metroid 4 is a logo, right? I mean, so I don't know development cycle wise.
I figured this question would come up, and I will point you to the fact that Super Mario Odyssey was not revealed to the world until E3, and it came out October 27th, just in time for the holiday season. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild
was in development for 4 years.
Right. How much did they tease before they really showed off the game when they were doing their big Switch reveal, which was only a few months before the actual Switch came out. So, Nintendo, we don't have leakers, man. We have a strong team. We keep things in house. So
I know. I'm playing devil's advocate for part of, for the sake of conversation. You make a good point that they have a tendency to kind of to announce something, in a state where it's going to come out soon, right? They're not going to kind of slow drip things, unless you are talking about Breath of the Wild, which they slow dripped for years. I think the other question is, a question I have for you is, and this is an easy one that other people are talking about as well, is there enough time and development for an actual new Smash, or does it get the Mario Kart treatment of bundling everything together, and in a time when they maybe are behind in their pipeline, this becomes the Wii U port season, right? That momentum is simply just getting things out there that people can buy.
Well, I would argue that you got a brand new Kirby and a brand new Yoshi, Bayonetta, and Fire Emblem. So that's kind of a nice variety, so to speak, of games that are entirely new. They're not ports. 2018, we're a year in. I think people would be disappointed if Smash was just a ported iteration a la Mario Kart Deluxe. I can understand Mario Kart Deluxe as a Switch launch title, Switch launch window. But at this point, no. My opinion would be, we're going to get a fresh Smash. They knew it was coming. They reinvented, Mario, and I can't understand that they didn't plan this out to have a Smash kind of lead them into. I wouldn't expect it till late 2018, but leading them into 2019 as a flagship title.
Okay, yeah, quite possible.
It's me.
No, this is good. Yeah, right.
I understand
it's exactly what it's supposed to be. So, Glassicles, you were shaking your head on the 3DS aspects, right? Like you were not in agreement that they need to figure out what they're doing. So what are your thoughts on their their clamshell hardware?
So I think there's no console manufacturer right now that doesn't have at least 2 SKUs, right? So that's kind of part of the mentality and the reason they do that is to seed a wider demographic when it comes to cost, right? I think they need to spread SKUs across a couple of cost brackets, but especially I think they also need to spread out the ownership opportunities, meaning I don't mind my kids at some point are going to be allowed to play the Switch. They're not going to be allowed to own the Switch, right? I got them tablets for Christmas, right? I have an iPad. They have at times in the past been allowed to hold an iPad. They are not going to be allowed to own an iPad. Kids, I think, in the dynamic between parents, my guess would be, you can hold the Switch, you can't own it. You can own a 3DS, right? So something that's smaller, rugged, less of an impact if it breaks, I think would be a good thing to have in their product lineup. I personally would like them to go ahead and introduce the successor to the 3DS, and put it in a niche where it plays well in partnership with the Switch. Now that they know that that's what it's going to be running alongside, right? I agree. Maybe the way the 3DS is structured and productized doesn't make as much sense with the Switch available, because when they made the 3DS, they didn't envision the Switch being in their product lineup. But I think they need a twofer in their lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense, right? That there's certainly a market there, that kind of low end, getting the 3DS or the 2DS down below $100, and the ruggedness of it as that intro Nintendo console. I think the DS certainly, and even the GBA Advance with its ability to take a beating, has been a consistent thing there on the, Nintendo has grown their own fans over the years by getting people early and having devices that work for younger kids. So Prime, any final thoughts here on Nintendo as a reformed Nintendo fan, or however we want to call it, but any thoughts here in terms of the prognostications?
Yeah, as far as the 3DS, part of me wants to say let that portable, just let it go, like, altogether. But realistically, yeah, I mean, I guess Cleese is probably right. They probably will bring out, a successor, or maybe like, Ultra 3DS or whatever they want to call the next iteration. Just because, like you said, a lot of these systems have, multiple iterations on their hardware. So, and they've done it in the past too themselves. So, but that just gets me worried. Is that gonna split the player base? I mean, obviously something that's on the 3DS probably can work on the Switch, but maybe they don't want to bring it over to the Switch, because then that's killing the 3DS, and kind of vice versa. So, I mean, it's, I guess, the thing they're probably they're thinking of, and I'm sure thought of a million times over, over the years, these past few years with the Switch coming out. So,
I mean, one pitch I'd throw out, 30 seconds of thought, so I haven't thought this all the way through, is NES Classic, Super NES Classic. Why do those things need to be able to hook up to TVs? Right? Why can't those be portable, come in below a $100 price point, put a inexpensive display on them, and hand them to kids? But I guess my big thing is what I'm saying is that I think they need a 3DS that is positioned in a market space that it doesn't cannibalize and compete with the Switch. Right? It needs to be inherently different games, and it's, when you said you think that they should let it go, what crossed my mind was, no, they need to make the 3DS or its replacement something that's not for you, right, or for me, but it's for a different customer demographic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would just, for NES Classic and NES Classic on TV, I think they're really trying to get the nostalgia factor of you sitting in front of it, whatever.
Oh, we're losing him. Yeah. The nostalgic, the factor of sitting in front of the TV, right? Okay.
Or they can just finally bring out the virtual console and,
Right?
Yeah.
That is another prediction that we haven't even talked about. I think the safe prediction is that they do some type of Game Boy Virtual Console. Or not Virtual Console, but Classic Edition, right? I think that seems possible, but Glassicles, your statements here in terms of something that isn't for us, that is for our kids, or that kind of blossoming gamer generation that's just coming up online now, that want something or with more than just a touchscreen. Yeah, I think that could be a really interesting piece. I could see where they would let the 3DS kind of wither off because the development of those games might be more pricey. Where if they have something that is a little cheaper on the development side, both in terms of games and also of hardware, that could be something. It's an easy mind share for them without having a whole lot of investment. So we're going to move on to Sony. Glassicles, you are talking about multiple SKUs, right? And Sony certainly has that with the Slim and with the PlayStation 4 Pro. We've got some numbers out this week that say that they've sold incredibly well, right? We're over 70 million sold worldwide for PS4. They've also sold about 5.9 million over the holiday season, but that's down in terms of numbers. So armchair CEOing here. So what comes next for Sony in 2018?
Roll your sleeves up. So first thing out of the gate, I kill the PlayStation VR. I think that product is a little more than a distraction. I really think I'm firmly coming around on VR is something that I feel the media and the industry are trying to force to happen. Much like 3D television. I think it's an incredibly niche market where there are a few people that are interested. The fact of the matter from the technology standpoint is the main problem with VR is while the technology has advanced and we have that capability to do it, and we're still chasing compute, right? Because we don't have globally available compute through multiple price tiers that can keep up with the performance demand of VR. The fact of the matter is that biologically, biometrically, VR is not how human beings function in terms of vision, neural processing, and sight, right? Like it's just not how we work, right? The Air Force recommends that even in a simulator, which is not VR, that if you put in, I think it's like an hour of simulator time, or maybe it is in a VR AR thing, they recommend that you don't drive a vehicle for 24 hours, right? So I think the industry continues to push this. It's not globally appealing to gamers. My opinion for Sony, if I'm CEO, and I'm going to come back around to where this hooks on is, I got to get rid of VR because it's a hobby booger, just like the Apple TV is, just like the PlayStation Move was, and it's not moving units or having a big enough impact, and it's doing nothing but being a distraction, particularly when it comes to my engineers and R&D. So that brings me around to my second point. I start to hyper-focus on the next generation because we and Microsoft have each had an opportunity to dork up a launch and then try and recover from that. Two console generations ago, it was us. And the media makes a very big deal right now about Microsoft and not having enough exclusives and how they completely dorked up the messaging for the Xbox One at the beginning when Don Matrick was in charge. Yeah, sure. But I take my team and I sit them down and I tell them, do not become arrogant. Remember that was us one generation ago. We completely dorked up the messaging for our $599 console. There's another reason I say I kill PSVR. Because Sony has had a historical trend of hyper-focusing on a piece of technology or a couple pieces of technology that we insisted on stuffing in a console that everybody did not necessarily need or want, and it paid off in the end, but it was an uphill battle from the beginning through about midway through the console cycle. We did it with the DVD player in the PlayStation 2. We did it with the Blu-ray player in the PlayStation 3. And I don't really know that the Blu-ray player really paid off for the PlayStation last generation. It paid off for Sony. Of course, it didn't really matter because all of our other divisions financially failed during the life cycle of the PlayStation 3. But it impacted our launch, and we had to jack up the price, just like people are accusing Microsoft of failing in jacking up its price for the launch of the Xbox One X. And then finally, I may have forgotten what my third thing was. Yeah, it was something about games. I'm forgetting what the third thing was, but those are my two big moves. I kill PlayStation VR. I start dumping a lot of money into R&D for the next generation, and I tell the engineers, stop picking up boogers, get me a core gaming console, get it ready. Oh, third thing, I hire somebody who understands how to do network services, and I have them rejigger the PlayStation Network and all of the associated economies around it. And whether I get that ready now or I poise that for the next generation, again, I strategically focus on coiling up to spring that thing because that's what Microsoft is doing. Microsoft is trying to engender and build a lot of gamer loyalty now by focusing on backwards compatibility, doing the Game Pass. Microsoft, I think, strategically has seeded this generation. They know they're not going to catch up, but they've made a technology stride forward with the Xbox One X. They're building back their gamer trust, and they are winding up for a Louisville Slugger home run for their next launch. And if we rest on our laurels with this, then we're going to be caught unawares and sunk. And we've got to figure out the PlayStation Network services, because one of the things you mentioned, DB, was the dip in sales, which I personally think is natural and something that I would have expected. What I didn't expect, and what should not be the case, is of the 73 million units that they have in their install base, they only have 31 million people subscribed to PlayStation Plus, and that is abhorrently ridiculous. There is no way in the world that a core component of your console's functionality should be resting on that service, and you have significantly less than 50% of your install base subscribed to PlayStation Plus.
I didn't realize that number was so low for PlayStation Plus. That's a huge dip. I mean, I would think comparatively, the attached numbers of Xbox Live for Microsoft have got to be much higher.
Oh yeah.
But I think that also, I wonder though if that is because you've got a generation of a lead on that, right? That last generation in PlayStation 3, you didn't have to pay to play online on a Sony console.
Right.
I think your recommendation about their network side makes a ton of sense, right? We even got a news story over the holiday break about how they may finally have something to tell us about how you can change your gamer, your PSN name, because the whole backward network that it's been built on for 2 generations is so, it doesn't allow for that change, right? I mean, it's a nice Destiny 1 comparison about how crazy that tool set is to make any type of changes, that they're living with a lot of legacy network code there that definitely, with moving to a new generation, and they've said they're going to do a new generation, not an iterative generation. So
and
a question that I have is
that one other tiny little thing.
Yeah.
I also take PlayStation View and I move it out of the PlayStation business division, because unfortunately, product confusion, people assume still that you have to have a PlayStation. It's one of the best and most competitive television services amongst all these kind of what I'm calling near real time or near live TV services. So they're closer to the broadcast metal than Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And that's becoming a product space. Their competitors are Sling, the Direct TV variant, yada, yada, yada. I take that thing, I move it out of the PlayStation Network. They can share service backbone, but I rebrand that thing as Sony View or something like that and get it tightly coupled and associated with my Bravia TV line, and move it out of my core gaming business. Sorry, that's my last little tidbit.
No, that's good. Prime, you've got any thoughts here on these Sony predictions?
Well, I mean, as far as like the VR stuff, I know you want them to dump that and get away from it, but I don't think they're going to, because I think they just announced that they're going to have like over 50 games coming out either throughout the year or maybe the first half of the year. So it's kind of weird because they're in a position where obviously they have all these consoles out there. They're starting to get all these games, these really good games coming out too, but I just don't hear like the excitement for the console itself though. I don't know if that makes sense. It's obviously it's selling and everything is going crazy, but not like when the PS2, was selling well, even 360. Obviously that's not Sony, but you heard everybody was talking about it and everyone was getting excited. But I just don't feel like there's that much excitement for it, which is kind of weird, like I said, because there's so many consoles out there and there's so many games. I mean, maybe it's just me because I'm not in that arena because I don't have a Sony system right now, so maybe I'm just not seeing it. But that's just how.
So I'll counter that, Prime, and say that I think you may be right that there's not an excitement around PlayStation 4. What I think you end up hearing, or what I end up hearing, is excitement around the games. Right, that this was the big refrain again and again in 2017 is that PlayStation 4 had more exclusives. That because of the sheer gap in sales, that it's the default platform for a lot of developers. So I think that there's maybe not the brand enthusiasm around PlayStation, but it becomes the background in what people are playing. Right, you're going to play PlayStation and play your game. Right, you're gonna play on a Nintendo and play your game. Right, that maybe the commitment is not to the network, but it's just accepted that that's where people are playing on.
So one of the things I'd mentioned when we're Prime, you talk about, and I will definitely say my CEO for a day thing is much more so about what I would do and not so much predictions of what I think Sony's going to do. But I will say, with regards to VR and what they're doing, again, my recommendation for them would be to look across the aisle at their competitor and think about what they're doing. Sony spent all that money and all that angst and Sturm and Drang on getting that Blu-ray player in the PlayStation 3. And why I say I don't really know that it paid off is at face value, people go, "Oh, well, Blu-ray won," and what was the even? I don't even remember what the Microsoft thing that they went with was.
HD DVR.
HD DVD or whatever. So
DVD.
People go, yeah, so it paid off, right? Because PlayStation won with Blu-ray. But the problem is, what Microsoft did was when they thought they were starting to lose, they moved the battlefield, right? They said, we're not focused on the optical media war. That's silly. We're looking forward to the next thing. And the next thing is how do you get all your media to be digital? And so Microsoft more quickly built out the capability to pull down high definition digital video, getting that into their store, getting that onto the Xbox, bleeding that over to Windows, because you can do the same thing there, and then cross-linking those libraries. So one of the great things is before PlayStation went to it, whatever video library you had, you could access on your PC, on your Windows PC as well as Xbox. The danger here is that, again, PlayStation focuses on VR while Microsoft doesn't. And one of the things that winds up happening is Sony has to boost their prices. Sony wastes a lot of R&D money building out a capability to play a game that Microsoft has decided isn't even strategically viable. And my thing is, if Microsoft were going to go after VR, all those brand new low-cost headsets that came out in the fall with the Creators Update would be compatible with Xbox, and they're not. And I was predicting that they would be because I thought that would be the sensible way for Microsoft to go after that market space. And they've clearly decided that they're not, which seems to signal to me they're looking at that the same way that they looked at the optical media war from last generation.
All right, so I think we've got a couple topics here that we can see the early part of this year in terms of podcasts, but let's take that Microsoft kind of segue here and kick it over to our Microsoft CEO for the day. So Osiris Prime, you're in the boardroom here at Microsoft. You and Phil Spencer, you're shooting it, trying to figure out what comes next. Good launch of the Xbox X, or at least what seems to be good numbers. What do you do now in 2018?
Well, as one Mr. Phil Spencer said at one time, games. We need some games here, guys. I know, I guess because I had kind of mentioned this before, but I mean, yeah, they might be playing for the long game now with Xbox Pass and the backwards compatibility, but they need something now to kind of keep, like, that's probably for the hardcore people, obviously, especially backwards compatibility with, original Xbox and Xbox 360, Xbox Game Pass, Netflix type of service. That's good. That's going to keep more, these same people here. But what about, these casual people, or, just the Call of Duty, Madden guys that just, buy a few games a year? We got to get some other games out there for them to play, because we don't really have anything out there right now. And this is exclusive, yes, also, but also third-party partnerships that they need to, to get, just like Sony did with Battlefront 2, with kind of lesser extent maybe right now because there's other problems with that. But Battlefront 2 and Destiny 2, that had problems too. But obviously that was out there. They always had Sony PS4 branding on it, just kind of like the 360 did back in the day with Call of Duty, and they had I can't remember the one spy game, Splinter Cell, which that's kind of gone the way of the dodo as far as I can tell. They just need some, they need to get some games out there to get these systems going. Like you mentioned, Xbox X is out. Excuse me, X. I bought one recently. I got one. I'm playing PUBG in it. I mean, I like it. It looks way better than on my my OG. I had an OG Xbox One, so it looks better. But I mean, that's all I have to play on it right now. There are some enhancements, obviously, for some other games, but they're older games. So I mean, like Skyrim and Witcher 3 and stuff like that. But I mean, we just need some games to get out there and play with, especially with this new bigger, better Xbox One that we have out there. It was definitely a misstep that I don't think they didn't have anything really to showcase the system. They had Forza, obviously that's always kind of I don't want to say a tech demo, but obviously a graphical showcase of a system that's always kind of on par with their systems. But we just need something else out there to kind of showcase what it could do. But hopefully we'll get that with some games coming up. I'm not really sure what. Crackdown 3 maybe. I mean, that's kind of has cartoony graphics, so I don't know if that's really going to be the one or not. Same thing with
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, thank you. I was going to say the pirate game. And once again, another cartoony graphic. Obviously, you can still do stuff with those kind of graphics, but they just need something that's going to wow everybody, I guess. Obviously, in the short term, because I mean, like everybody's saying, they're pretty much done for this generation as far as trying to get to the top. I don't think they're going to get there. I'm not even sure if they're going to work their way up there a little bit, like kind of like PS3 did. At least they kind of came back up and we're kind of even with Microsoft, with the 360 near the end, or maybe even surpassed them. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I haven't even heard any numbers recently. I don't know if you guys have of what they've been selling of Xbox One. So I think that's the biggest thing, that they need to get some games out there. Kind of short term too. Online wise, they've been having a lot of problems lately, and that might just be because of the holiday season. Obviously, people kind of screw with these online services, around the holiday season, just to be jerks or whatever. But hopefully that's going to clear up soon, because I've had a lot of problems just connecting. When you go into network settings, it tells you what kind of problems they're having, and that's been like almost for the last few weeks. Something's been down, either the store or can't play online games or something like that. So, like I said, hopefully that's just holiday stuff that's going to pass up. But they got to get that button down too. So we'll have to see what else is going to come up for them.
Okay, I have so for 2018 you're pushing games in that it's seeded. Microsoft seeded kind of this generation. I guess and I apologize if I break up a little bit. I'm having some internet issues tonight. But why then do you push like a new premium your system if for this generation, instead of looking forward to just kind of coming out strong with like an Xbox One X for Generation 9, I guess it would be?
Because there are no generations. That's the answer. That Microsoft gave this generation away. Or not didn't give it away, right? They fought for it. They saw that they were losing, and they said, okay, we're going to shift the narrative. We're going to change the landscape. We're not going to measure it by generations anymore. We're going to think about it like PCs. And so this way it allows them to iterate like an iPhone rather than or an iPad, right? I mean, that they can keep things going without having to make the Sony leap, so that those games can still be, so you can still play it, right? As Prime is talking about playing his OG Xbox or his Xbox X, those same games play. Where as Glassicles told us that Microsoft or that Sony should invest money into the PlayStation 5, that means that your PlayStation 4 games probably aren't going to play on that hardware. And so I think that that's the answer. Whether or not that's the right answer in terms of a long-term business strategy, but I think that's how I see Microsoft positioning themselves.
I understand the strategy, I guess, like as you outlined it, but it's hard for me to see how that gets more consoles in more homes. Like, the Nintendo Switch came out and it's an event, and it's something that people are like, moms and dads that aren't gamers aren't going to be aware about the nuances of the Xbox One X versus the Xbox One, or what about the Xbox One S? Like, how does that fit in? So, having tiers does help in a way. I think consoles differentiate themselves than just being a PC that you plug into your TV and have like a custom controller for. But I could also, I see the pros and cons, but from a casual gamer perspective, having the eternal console, so to speak, I don't know if that really increases your sales numbers, especially when, if you want like an iterative thing, $500 price tags aren't terribly appealing. I think I have an article here from Extreme Tech. Sony PS4 still outsold the Xbox One X in November. So, so people are still buying old hardware as long as they can play the games that they have. I don't know if that being a premium console is a differentiator.
So I think you just hit on the whole point yourself, right? People are still buying Xbox games regardless of what hardware set they have. I know we're getting short on time, so I'll try and go through this very quickly. And I'm not saying that I'm right and you're wrong, right? I think Microsoft is coiling themselves up to change the narrative. As we all know, I think Satya Nadella is a cloud services guy. He doesn't care about hardware predominantly, although he's doing something with Andromeda. But it is cloud first, services first. I think what Microsoft is trying to do, even though they're still playing the hardware game, is I think they're trying to make the hardware less relevant and less of a thing, and they're trying to slipstream the Xbox into where it is. The Xbox is just a cheaper, lower effort way to play the same types of games that you can play on PC. I think Microsoft would be happy if every single Xbox game that comes out is also available in the Microsoft Store for play on PC, and you can use that same Xbox controller with an Xbox One or with a PC. And I think what they want is they want the deal to become, if you've got the chutzpah to either spend the money or build your own PC with a GeForce GTX 1060 or something mid-level to get in the game, you can. But if you just want to go out to the store and buy a $500 Raspberry Pi COTS equivalent and stick that on your entertainment shelf, you can play the same games. And in fact, you can put that box in there and not even ever look at it, because you can just forward pass those games over to your PC. And in that case, your PC doesn't even have to be gaming capable. So I think it's a weird thing, I know, and it makes it non-intuitive, but I think even though they jumped up and down and made a very big deal about Xbox One X and Xbox One Scorpio, I think the reality is it's a lot of flag waving in preps to then nosedive that narrative and make the discussion of the hardware subordinate to the discussion of the games and the services.
So I'm going to take that flag and dip into PC gaming just a little bit here before we run out of time. But I do want to the challenge with that strategy, I think, is if there's not games to sell, then the only way you get revenue is through the share you take out of that Microsoft store, right? Like if they can't get more games out there for people to buy, and they struggled with that in 17, then that revenue comes from the Steam model of skimming off the top. It's the reason that Valve doesn't have to make games anymore, is that they can skim off the top in terms of Steam. So I think that's and Valve's gonna and Steam's gonna have this is one of the big concerns that I have from a PC gaming perspective for this coming year, is that with the death, the cancellation, the closure of Steam Greenlight and Steam Direct, developer direct aspect being the new model where you just pay a flat $500 fee, which is great for small developers, it also means that the Steam marketplace has been flooded. So that 2017 saw at least 100 to 150% increase in games that are indie games that are available on the marketplace. So looking at, and this is back in September, I'm looking at an article from Gamasutra, looking at from the same quarter period of time in 2015 compared to 2017, you had in 2015 450 games released, and at that same quarter in 2017 under the new Steam platform, you've got over 1,100 games released. So for small indie devs to cut through is going to be very hard within the existing Steam structure. And maybe that's a place where Microsoft has a play to make, right? That their Microsoft game store is relatively thin. Maybe there's a way there that they can, just like Nindies on Nintendo, that those indie developers have gotten some press and some visibility because the store is thin at this stage. So I think that is one of the challenges that's going to face PC gaming, and for smaller developers, I think PUBG, as Osiris's tag there says, I think that's going to be not the game model, right? Not the battle royale mode, but the fact that it blew up so big because it's streamable. And so that if you're a small indie dev looking to try to figure out how you cut through 1,100 games being released every quarter on a platform, it's finding an audience within Twitch, within live streaming, within a variety of places. Mixer, right? Yeah. Find it.
I think that's potentially the hook. Is it's indies to Microsoft to the store to Mixer.
Yep. And I think it's all within a smaller universe, which means the discoverability of it is potentially stronger. And Mixer is, there's already, I follow a lot of Destiny 2, of Destiny streamers, and some of them have moved over to Mixer just because it cuts through the noise, and that's like a lot of social platforms, right? You're moving from one to the other as it gets flooded with too many casuals. So I think that's going to be a PC challenge and some things to look at here. I think my big prediction PC wise is the success of Destiny 2 on Blizzard's BattleNet in terms of the launcher. It means that Activision sees that as a way to cut out Steam and go right to their audience and keep it all within house. So Call of Duty, whatever Call of Duty becomes for this coming year, it launches solely on BattleNet, and Activision Blizzard keeps their revenue in house that way. So there are some quick thoughts on PC. I'm open to if anybody wants to kick some dirt in my eye before we keep going here into our final segment of the night. So we are at our half hour. We are at our hour mark, gentlemen. But as we wrap up the show, I want to spend a little bit of time on some gaming resolutions. So again, this is our first show of 2018, and all of us usually, as we have talked about this in the past, we've got some hopes, some desires, some plans for gaming in 2018. So I'm going to go back around the horn here, but do this in reverse. So Osiris Prime, what are some of your gaming resolutions here for the coming year?
So actually, I did think about making a spreadsheet like you guys are obviously have done and are doing in the past and in the present future, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna I'm gonna give myself into my backlog and just say, you know what? I'm just going to play my games. Whatever I want to play, I'm just going to play. Because the last couple of years when we started doing kind of at the beginning of the year too, kind of as a resolution, trying to go through our backlog, eventually it just seemed like work to me, and I don't want that. Especially when I was playing Walking Dead, because it took me forever to play that game in the first place. And then as I was kind of going through it, I'm just plodding through. It's like, oh, I got to be almost done, and then the next level would come, and oh, this is not the last level. The next level would come. Oh, it's not the last level either. So I just kept going and going, and it just kind of got me like kind of agitated. So I'm just gonna screw all that. I'm just gonna play my games. Right now I'm playing PUBG. Probably gonna play it for a while. I'll jump back in. Obviously, I always go back into Rocket League, especially now that I have it on Switch. But I'm just going to jump around into games, probably mostly the newer stuff as I buy them. And then one of the things we have here is, our buying habits. I'm just going to buy stuff too, the same way. I'm not going to really budget anything.
Gonna like what I like, buy what I want.
That's right.
It's a
No,
good.
I'm not gonna get crazy.
What's this diet and exercise people talk about in the new year? I'm just gonna consume it all.
I'm gonna say right now, I'm not gonna get too crazy, but I just did pre-order the Bayonetta 1 and 2 pack, so I'm gonna get that next month. I think it is February. But no, I'm gonna pick and choose. Obviously, I'm not gonna buy everything. I can't buy everything. That's my wife would kill me. That's how I'm gonna handle that, my gaming and buying stuff. And then real quick, the communities with PUBG. When I started playing that, I forgot there was one thing on the Xbox I forgot about was the looking for groups, which is on there now, and the clubs too for a lesser extent. I like the looking for groups because you just go in there, people post, or you can post, hey, I want to play PUBG, and you can put all kind of hashtags and stuff like that. And I've actually met a lot of cool people on there to play with. So, look at the looking for groups section. I think that's under I think when you're looking at your friends list, it's another option in there. It just says looking for groups, and then you can kind of drill down and use that. So. That's my suggestion too, is to use that on the Xbox Live.
All right.
Hey, DB.
Yes.
I know you wanted to kind of go in order, but can I jump in because?
Yeah, go ahead. As your network connection has been dropping in and out. So Swiss, what are your resolutions here?
Sorry about that. Prime has basically inspired me to abandon my New Year's resolution already. I was like,
yes.
I'm going to organize things and be like, I'm going to play this game and these 2 games for these 2-week block and then rotate myself out, even if I don't want to. But you know what? He's right. I'm going to play what I want. And as far as trying to improve in 2018, I would like to try to arrange more multiplayer sessions with people online and with you gentlemen.
Anarchy reigns.
Okay, Glassicles, the man with the rotating spreadsheet of what he plays, throwing into the randomizer. So, are you throwing caution to the wind, or what are your gaming resolutions here, sir?
I'm starting off the year open and flexible, so I'll admit I don't know. So my year typically actually starts in November. It's kind of like the Oscar season. And I started a spreadsheet. I have not kept that spreadsheet up as we've gone through the holidays. So as of right now, I'm not using a spreadsheet to track my specific time on specific platforms or devices or titles. Kind of like Prime, right now I'm playing whatever I want to play. As far as what I'm going to buy, the big difference for me this year is I'm going to buy more things physically because I realize the financial prudence in buying, lots of retail chains are now paying you basically to buy physical copies by giving you some type of kickback that makes it less expensive than buying the digital. So I did sign up for Gamers Club Unlocked or whatever Best Buy's thing is. I'm pretty much going to be buying from that at least probably 50% of the time or more. Community wise, I'm gonna stick with Destiny. I'm playing a little bit with Gray, a former cast member on our previous generation show. I'm going to be playing Elite Dangerous with him. I've played once with him on Xbox, and I'll probably jump in on the PC version as well. So I'm going to be doing Destiny, Elite Dangerous, and there's some other community. Oh, and then I'm going to be getting hardcore into Dreadnought, and then Skull and Bones when it comes out. And those will kind of be my arena games or whatever. Apps and services, I don't really know. I do want to spend more time streaming to Mixer. Although I've got we're kind of going through the assessment with that now, right? I'm starting to spend some time kind of thinking and breaking that down a little bit more and defining where it makes me happy and what I'm not satisfied with. And I may try and open a dialogue with them to give them that feedback on social media or something like that as we experiment and play with it. So right now I'm kind of wide open, although, and I think overall I'm going to try and play fewer games. I'm going to do less of I'm very bad about when I buy a thing that just came out that's reviewed very well. I do a bad thing of often I can't stop. I can't make I can't go 30 minutes out of my way to stop at Best Buy just to get the one game, right? I got to buy a kicker along with it. Or if I'm on Steam buying a game, I can't just buy the one game. I have to buy the game and get a deal. So I'm going to try and back off of that and do less of that, although that is difficult. but that's my plan for 2018.
All right. Yeah, I these are great. And as Prime is talking about his anarchy here, I think that there's a little bit of that we'll come back to in some future episodes here as we talk about how we're going to lay out the show here for the next for the next season here within 2018. You know, we started doing the topics one week and a playlist the next week. So I think that there's a little bit of anarchy and a little bit of community in how we're going to tackle some of that playlist, and we'll talk more about that in some coming shows. So I'm going to quickly run through a few gaming resolutions here. Last year I started off with just a desire to knock through my backlog, and 5 games in I was doing great, and then the Switch came out, and that the whole thing just kind of shot. So, but this year, one of the things that I am going to do and take some of my own advice on my PC armchair quarterbacking here is I've subscribed to the Humble Bundle monthly. So I've paid for a year of that. So I got a good deal over the holiday season where it was under $10 a month. So for $10 a month, I'll get I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 different games, some big name games, some a little bit older, but also some indie games. I went back through and I did this last year again as well. And the times when I was subscribed, I had a lot of games in there that got on some indie best of year lists, and I ended up paying about $3 per game of the ones that I actually played or want to still play. I think that idea of building a backlog for the sake of buying a deal because it's a good deal, I'm guilty of that. And that's one of the things I'm going to try not to do this year as much, is just because it's a good price and the what ifs or one day kind of rainy day gaming, I'm going to try to avoid that, which means that I'll probably play and buy what I'm interested in, but not necessarily just because it's a good value. My spreadsheet, gentlemen, I keep a spreadsheet only because it helps me keep track of pricing, not so much in terms of when and where I'm going to play it. I certainly have some games I started this year with a very small physical collection. I had been moving more digital, but like you, Aglasicles, I joined up with Gamers Club Unlocked, and so it was much more economical to pick up games physical over the holiday season and with all the sales. So I've got a physical backlog of games that I want to kind of try to work through. And so that's going to be my priority, is to knock through physical games versus some digital games, and be able to, they provide some flexibility, a little bit of anarchy in there, but the librarian in me still wants to have some controlled anarchy there. So that is some of my gaming resolutions, and I think there's always more that we'll be talking about here on Enough to Keep Going. We will be back for our Thursday show. This Thursday, this will be our 2017 news wrap up. We're going to do some news highlights from last year and think about it with a lens to the future, right? Like, if these news stories are important for 2017, what does that mean for 18? What does that mean for the year we're coming into? And then next week, we will be back to our rotation in general, with our Tuesday nights being our discussion show, or Enough to Keep Going, and our Thursdays being our 30-minute E2KG in 30, the fastest gaming news around the internet. So, gentlemen, any final thoughts, any final plugs here as we head out into this new year? And I will take the silence as a way to wrap us up. So until then, until next time, whether you're coming back next on Thursday for our news show, or you're coming back join us in the discussion next Tuesday night. So we've got a great 2018 to look forward to. We've got a lot of flexible Anarchy Reigns gaming going on here, with a lot, which should breed some really interesting discussions for this community. So we hope you join our community, join in on our YouTube channel. We're now back streaming there. You can find us on social media as well, E2KG Network. And until then, until you engage, until we are back with you, we're gonna keep talking. We're gonna keep playing, because we are always gonna be enough to keep going. Good night.